of New Jersey is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through Iran's funding of terrorist organizations, it continues to work towards the delegitimization of Israel. Iran has to be held accountable for its role in funding Hamas and other terrorist groups. And while I applaud the Treasury Department's recent sanctions on individuals identified as key Hamas terrorist group members, operatives, and financial facilitators, much more has to be done to prevent malign actors like Iran from financing proxy terrorist groups. Ms. Pletka, in a recent article, you wrote that the United States has chosen not to enforce its sanctions on Iran. It's certainly bothersome to me since I was the architect and author of most of those sanctions. What do you mean by that? And what recommendations do you have for the U.S. to do better enforcement of existing sanctions?
Thank you, sir. And Menendez-Kirk is great legislation, so thank you for your leadership on that. As I said in my opening testimony, I think there's a lot that Congress can do to tighten the screws. Why do I think the administration is not enforcing sanctions? There is a hope. There has been a hope that that the United States could either modernize or re-enter the JCPOA as it was, if it was able to secure Iranian cooperation. To me, that's fantasy land, but it certainly represented the ambition at the beginning of the administration. I hope it is no longer. What can you do? First of all, we need to go after everything, and that, I think, has been the message from the entire table. We need to go after all spigots that are funding Iran and enabling Iran to fund its proxies around the region. That means oil sales. It means every other activity that the Iranians are involved in. We see these illicit oil sales. We also see, by the way, illegal transfers between Russia and Iran, exchanging grain for oil. All of these are opportunities. We have task forces in the Persian Gulf that can be used to interdict ships. We have options at our fingertips to deny even ships on the high seas insurance, to go after them in a whole variety of ways. But the most important thing is to impose a cost on the buyers. They are the ones helping Iran fund these groups, and most importantly in that group is the Chinese government, the communist Chinese government in Beijing.
Yeah, and that is a issue I've raised before, which is the Chinese are buying enormous amounts of Iranian oil and Russian as well. And so at the end of the day, you have to make a conscious decision. If you really want to sanction and stop the flow of money, you have to pursue, as you suggest, the buyer. Because without a buyer, there isn't a flow of money at the end of the day. In September, the U.S. agreed that it would unfreeze $6 billion in Iranian funds. However, in light of Hamas's attack on Israel, the U.S. and the Qatari government have agreed to temporarily prevent Iran from obtaining access to the $6 billion. It seems to me that the goal of any sanctions regime is to use economic leverage to bring about changes in a foreign actor's behavior. With that said, Iran is obviously openly hostile towards Israel. It supports Hamas, and while it denies that it assisted Hamas' terrorist attack against Israel, Hamas doesn't have the intelligence and technological capabilities to launch such an operation. That can only come from a state actor. And the only state actor who would help Iran, who would help Hamas, is Iran. Dr. Wedman, shouldn't one of the conditions for unfreezing the $6 billion is the cutting of all ties by Iran to Hamas and its flow of money to it?
Thank you for the question. I'm not fully familiar with the U.S. policy and approach in those aspects, but obviously I would say that. Obviously, Iran is financing Hamas, and I do believe that any action that can prevent that should be taken. Anything that stops the funding to Hamas.
Well, it just seems to me. And of course, we always want to get American citizens back. It brings a larger question. We should not let American citizens travel to countries where they are likely to be hostages, i.e. Iran, Russia, and others, because then we are put ourselves in a hostage situation. But it also, I think, encourages other countries to say, if you detain Americans illegally, then you can hit a cache of gold. And that is something that we just simply should not allow. Thank you.